Journey, Lzzy Hale, and Daughtry. That's gonna make for an amazing, tasty mixture. I can't wait to hear how these two voices blend. This is a singing channel. I get to teach people how to sing. And I do that largely by showing people how to take inspiration from the singers that they love and put those things in their own voices. If you'd like help learning how to sing based off of inspiration instead of striving in comparison, click the link below and join my free voice course. All right, Daughtry, Separate Ways, featuring Lzzy Hale.
Here we stand, worlds apart, hearts broken into two. Sleepless nights, losing ground, I'm reaching for you, feeling that it's gone.
Okay, we have to go back. Daughtry is the master of sneakily climbing in range and being relaxed, yet adding intensity. And there's something that he's doing. Well, there's a few things that he's doing, but one of the main things he's doing goes largely unnoticed if you don't know what to listen for.
Here we stand, worlds apart, hearts broken into.
Okay, listen to those first two lines. How he exits. Here we stand. There's this little tiny sigh at the end of the note. He does it again on the second line and throughout this verse.
Here we stand,
Here we stand. And then,
worlds apart, hearts broken into.
this sigh, this release out of the note, accompanied by how he digs in. It's like this arc into the line. This is not, here we stand, worlds apart, broken into. Like you're plowing through notes, like you're getting progressively louder and locking your voice into a particular posture that it's going to get trapped in and then fizzle out. By taking each note at slightly different dynamics and ramping up the intensity, yes, as you get a little higher, but not connected to needing to ramp up the intensity so you can get higher, adding dynamics so that you can get a little bit more grit and sizzle out of it, and then abandoning out of it. Doing that keeps your voice loose, much like when you're doing an athletic sport and you get all tensed up trying to, make free throws or do something like that. If you're all tense with the motions that you're making versus if you're really loose, you're actually free to do more of what you want to do. These sighs that he's putting at the end of these powerful parts of even this verse are key to staying loose as a vocalist. Helps with stamina and presentation.
Worlds apart, hearts broken into.
Part really digs into that one. And then by the time he's at two, he's able to just out of it. Again.
Sleepless nights, losing ground, I'm reaching for you.
He, on every single one of those U's, he's sighing out of every single one of those. He's loose and intense. He can't really be intense and tense. Or can you? I don't think you can. Certainly not as a vocalist.
Feeling that it's gone. To change your mind. If we can't go on, survive the tide. Love divides. Someday.
Ooh, what a blend. I gotta hear that again.
Feeling that it's gone. To change your mind. If we can't go on, survive the tide.
I just say, I think it's really cool that they're singing into 414s. They're not doing like the typical handheld live mic. Let's talk about Chris Daughtry's sizzly grit up there on Love Divides. A lot of people think you add subtle distortion like that simply by just going harder and harder on your primary chords. Love Divides! No, that doesn't really work. You notice how there's this inconsistency where it's, your primary chords don't like to be distorted. They don't like to have too much air being pressed through them while you're trying to vibrate, particularly at higher pitches. We actually want to do the opposite. And this is why when you hear Chris Daughtry go high, a lot of times, yeah, there's some neat intensity, but he actually looks and sounds simultaneously grittier and more relaxed. It's really cool. We are going to do the opposite of going harder on our chords. We're going to hold back air. So let's take those notes and do it wrong a few times and then turn it on its head and do it right, which is counterintuitive to what we think is actually happening. Love divides! No. Love divides! Love divides! I'm lightening up as I go higher, not being afraid of even to enter my head voice as I'm dialing this in. Love! I'm going to lean into love. Love divides! Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice and think, hold back air as I go to divides. How do we think holding back air? I usually do it by lifting something heavy or thinking about lifting something heavy. So if I lift this desk and make a phonation, well, I'm making a phonation, but there's this like thing going on above. It's like a gurgly sound. Well, what my body's doing, what I'm naturally doing, this is a survival tactic our body naturally has. I hold back air. I conserve air even as I'm vocalizing. This is what we can do to get grit like Chris Daughtry. Listen again to Love Divides and we'll dial it in.
Love divides.
Love divides! Now I'm going to think lifting something heavy on divides gradually, and then I'm going to think about that sensation of being as high as possible, that engagement being as high as possible in my throat. So I'm actually holding back the air above my primary chords. Love divides! Relax into it, keep it clean. Love divides! Yeah! Yes, we're putting the distortion on top of clean singing. We're not just going harder and harder on our chords. Daughtry is the master of turning that on and off as he goes through his range.
Someday love will find you. Break those chains that bind you.
Find you!
I will remind you how we touched and we're not separate ways. If he ever hurt you, true love won't desert you. You know I still love you.
Notice how he's modifying that vowel. Won't desert you. Desert, not desert you. He's singing high in this upper chest, lower mix sound. Desert! With compression, with that holding air back in order to get that little sizzly grit. And that's a lot easier to do if you lengthen the vowels. Desert! But you don't want to do that all the time. You want to be strategic. When you're singing with another vocalist, if someone's going, desert, and the other person's going, desert, they're not going to blend. Part of the reason that they're blending so well is because they're matching their vowel modifications. And Daughtry's doing this a lot because he's getting that intensity in that higher part of his chest voice.
Desert you. You know I still love you. Though we touched and we're not separate ways.
I gotta hear that again.
We touched and we're not separate ways.
That throw of the voice. Listen how they both throw their voice there.
Though we touched and we're not separate
notes is Lzzy singing? I think is what Lizzy's doing. And then you have this going on. This is an abandonment, not to a particular note. We're not trying to go way high and then get gritty. We're actually going so high that our voice sort of breaks out. When separate ways. When separate ways. No, we're not trying to go for a particular note. It's almost like we're pushing our voice to its limit. One of my favorite examples of this is on Slaves and Bulldozers from Bad Motorfinger, Chris Cornell. He can totally, in fact, the next stanza, he hits the note that he's letting his voice break on Now I Know Why You've Been Shaken. It says, now I know why you've been shaken. Now I know why you've been shaken. That is, yeah, he's abandoning out almost this like, I'm shaking. Oh. He's doing that. But then the very next stanza, he's hitting that note that he abandoned out of. So bleed your heart. That one was the one that went shake. Ah. He's hitting it like Daughtry hit the last note. This went separate ways. This is a stylistic thing based on abandonment. And it's similar to the size that he's doing. Daughtry makes a habit of abandoning out of these constructs that he puts his voice in. And that's what makes it so interesting and dynamic.
Troubled times, caught between confusion and pain.
You can hear her doing that same thing. Pain! Pain! It's not as pronounced as what Daughtry was doing. Part of that is it doesn't need to be. This is a lower part of Lizzy's voice, a lower range. And so she's naturally going to be a bit more comfortable with these notes.
Caught between confusion and pain. Distant eyes, promises we made were in vain.
Oh, that was awesome. In vain. Did you hear that same sort of compression that we were talking about earlier with Chris Daughtry? Vain. It just adds this wonderful little sizzle to it that it cannot be accomplished by simply going harder on your primary chords. You have to learn how to separate those sensations of singing clean, especially up high. Sing clean up high. And then holding back air in order to get that upper throat constriction to kick in. It takes a lot of practice, but once it's muscle memory, it's very fun and easy to do. There was a good sigh. Oh, you think that they're going to stop, and then they keep going all the way up there. That was a gritty bind behind Lizzy's cleaner sound. But they're matching those vowels, and they're matching the tone quite a bit. They could very easily be one person with a lower larynx, one person with a higher, more nasal sound. But they found a balance where they're because they're listening to each other, their voices naturally lock into this homeostasis, this balance between one another, and complement each other perfectly.
Take care, my love, miss you. Someday love will find you.
see how they're like, singing to each other, really engaging with each other? Oh, this is cool. Studio footage. I love the behind the scene thing. That's really cool. Oh, that perfect compressed distortion sound. I still love you, babe. Oh, this is one of the things I love about Chris Daughtry's style. This is an arranging thing. We have Lzzy up here. This, just pegging that note. And then Chris Daughtry doesn't ever go to that note, but he leads you up there almost and kind of leaves you hanging. Like, nope, that's Liz's. It's vocal restraint and it's production and arranging restraint. It lets this beautiful note that Lzzy is milking for all it's worth, let it stand as in all the majesty it deserves. And what Chris is doing on the other end, as they're calling and answering, is he's complimenting it and he's supporting it. It's not that that note is not in Daughtry's wheelhouse. It absolutely is. But he's choosing to serve the arrangement, to serve the duet in the vocal performance. And if he were to match up to that note at any one point, it would start to create in the listener's mind a bit of a competition rather than a dance between these two unique yet perfectly blended and complementary vocal performances. Listen again with that in mind. He goes one note lower and lets it go. Thing is I wouldn't have noticed that if I hadn't heard Daughtry do that in lots of other situations, even on his own albums. There's this sense that the arrangement, the melodic interest, and the tension is supported by not actually going to the root. By getting up there, and they're going, nope. But it's going to be awesome, and it's actually going to be a little better because we're going to leave you with that little bit of tension. In his writing, in his arranging, in his melodic sense, he does that over and over again, and it's beautiful. Oh, we got to listen to that round again. That way they call and answer there. Listen, do they start the whispers in the recorded arrangement? Do they start the? I know they're not. It's just two of them on the video, but do they start the whispers sooner as they're doing that interplay with those higher notes? I don't know. Maybe not. I think it's in there just a little bit, and then they bring it up. The extra little texture out here. It's either that or they've subtly doubled the separate ways, that part. Neat band limited. Now that right there, even that whisper at the end, this is a stage whisper. This is a compressed. It's the same idea. We're lifting something heavy, though, a little bit, balancing that. It's not though we went our step. Not like that. But there's a little bit of this holding back air even as we're whispering to make the whisper a bit harsher sounding. Though we went our separate ways. Though we went our separate ways. And playing with that threshold, actually, examining how you whisper and going from though we went to though we, doing that and making sure that your engagement is high, that you're holding back the air as high as possible in your throat, is a good way to start feeling out how you want to add notes into that, getting that wonderful sizzly compression that we talked about earlier in the video. I really enjoyed this collaboration. Brilliant blend of tones, characters, and voices, and a great production too. Again, if you'd like to learn how to work with your voice by drawing from your favorite vocal inspirations, click that link below and join my free course. We'll see you for more.